When you don't have time for all those facts, all those truths, here's just one. When you don't have an hour free and you need to be informed, take a listen to today's Morning Moment, coming up right now. It's 11:45 Eastern. It's time for A Radio's Morning Moment.
You're listening to A Radio.
Thank you for joining us. You're listening to A Radio, and this is the Morning Moment. Follow us on Spreaker.com and click on the like button. You can find us on most social media platforms such as iTunes, Spotify and iHeartRadio. Go to our website, aradio.wordpress.com, for details, where you'll find more content and details on our podcasts and more. I continue my piece, my short ditty if you like, on important current matters. This one's called, What About China? When does the world start to hold a communist nation responsible? Isn't that the question we should all be asking? To me, that's the only question. Consider the damage that has been caused to every country in the world. Every country. I doubt now that there isn't someone who has not lost a loved one, or at least knows someone who has lost a loved one. How can the world continue on as before? The value of $1 has been made meaningless by, as the president describes it, a Chinese plague. The only question to me has to be, why are we not holding China culpable for this? Are they too big to threaten with sanctions? To my mind, no country is too big. They openly threaten the independent state of Taiwan. They openly threaten Australia with, quote, consequences, unquote, if they continue to demand answers over this plague. How can any country continue to do business who is prepared to block, if not cover? How is any country to do business with a country that is prepared to block, if not cover up, their actions or their inactions? President Trump said it best when he said, why didn't they stop it? Why didn't they then ask for our help? So the question you have to ask is this. Did they not want to stop it? Did they not want to stop the virus? Which is concerning enough, which obviously leads to some very dark questions. Or even as disturbing, did they not know how to stop it? Which in itself is also disturbing, and even more disturbing that I've heard, and it wouldn't at all surprise me, that this could in fact be a trial run that ran amok, which beggars the question even more. What if they have another go? Of course they'd deny that, wouldn't they? The Chinese are active all over the world. They steal, bully, and for all intents and purposes, intimidate countries to acquiesce to their will. And we know this. We should all be under no illusions that China looks at us all, at best, competitors and at worst, threats. China is, after all, a communist nation, a communist country, with a hard-line communist regime, yet we treat them as a normal country. They're not. And it's more than time that we stop treating them as a newly emerged nation, and rather a very serious threat to our Western way of life. I believe, as do many others, that China has shown its true colours, and we should be under no illusion, no misapprehension at all, that they are a real threat. Else, why are they playing around with chemical weapons, stealing technology from the West from level 4 establishments. Why do they want that? Why would a country that has no intention of using such potential weaponry be investing in it? The question we all have to ask is, when is enough enough? And what I'm going to say now is going to freak some people, but I don't care. I believe now is the time to close down China. Freeze them out. Stop recognizing their currency and call their bluff. Now, the consequences of doing this are very grave. However, leaving them free to roam the globe for another 10 years without any consequences will be far more serious for us all. We must bring them to heel now, before they become too powerful. And heaven forbid they have already become too powerful. And furthermore, I cite examples of trade as to where to start. Businesses should not be doing business as usual, and an example should be sport. Sport should be terminated immediately. They should be banned from the Olympics and drummed out of the financial world. If we do these things, and we'd all have to act together to do it, the more they will understand that actions do have consequences, and we must be prepared for their reactions, which will be probably in the realms of military action. So we've got to be strong, and we've got to tell them when and if we've got to be ready, and when and if they may be having another incident in the future, we've got to be ready to act immediately. Now, I know this is harsh, yes, but I think it's necessary for all of us to be able to return to a normal world, one where it's not normal to wear a face mask, a world where shaking someone's hand will not threaten your life or the person whose hand you were shaking. Anything less is totally unacceptable. We cannot settle for less. China is responsible, and the politicians are there to do our bidding. And if we tell them that's what we want, then they better darn well do it. Else resign and put somebody in who will do it. Remember those appeasers before the Second World War? And look where we ended up. In a war. Appeasing any dictatorship is always a bad move. You always pay the price, sooner or later. China is a real threat to us all, and putting your head below the bed covers is not going to change it. I know it's unpleasant for us all to hear, but these are the facts, and everybody really knows it. China is not our friend, and we should not be doing any business with China. And that's my comment. Oh, and to reinforce why I feel how I do about China, I put a few clips together from the recent past and see if you can see a common denominator.
Chinese officials are warning Canada not to interfere in the country's new national security law. The Foreign Ministry hit back this morning at Ottawa's latest move, the suspension of its extradition treaty with Hong Kong. And despite accelerating tensions, there are signs that more governments could soon follow Canada's lead.
The last couple of years haven't been easy. They've been very challenging. Obviously the drought was a major concern for us. Then we had fire, which was absolutely devastating. We had flood. Then we were hit with the coronavirus.
As a fifth-generation beef producer, Robert McKenzie is used to dealing with challenges. But now he's facing the potential loss of his biggest export market.
It cripples Australia, because China's a massive trading partner of Australia for sure.
The local abattoir, which processes 90% of his beef, is one of 4 that's been barred from the lucrative Chinese market.
Those 4 plants make up about 35% of the Australian beef exports to China. I spoke to quite a few customers and let them know that obviously we'll update them as soon as we know what's going on, because they were as much in the dark as we were.
China suspended the beef imports over labelling and health certification issues, but it came just weeks after China's ambassador said his people might lose their appetite for Australian beef and wine because of this.
Now, it would seem entirely reasonable and sensible that the world would want to have an independent assessment of how this all occurred.
As well as the beef bans, China has since slapped an 80% tariff on Australian barley imports.
What I'm really concerned about is this potential for a trade war to erupt and to damage Queensland's exports, to damage Queensland's reputation, and to damage Queensland's jobs and livelihoods.
The comments of Ambassador Cheng were unhelpful, and they certainly did imply that there could be an attempt of economic coercion. Now, Chinese authorities have subsequently been clear that the issues that have been raised around barley and beef are long-standing 12 to 18-month-long administrative processes, and we're responding to the detail of those.
Reunification is inevitable. Xi Jinping's message to Taiwan 40 years after China ended its military confrontation with the island. Now the Chinese president says use of force is still on the table.
We're willing to negotiate sincerely and expend all our efforts in striving for the prospect of peaceful reunification. We do not promise to renounce the use of force and reserve the right to use all necessary measures.
Taiwan has never formally declared independence, but has been self-governed since 1949, when the nationalists fled to the island after losing China's civil war to the Communist Party.
China has threatened consequences if Britain grants Hong Kong residents a path to citizenship. Prime Minister Boris Johnson has made the offer in response to the new national security law imposed on the territory. Beijing has denounced the move as a breach of agreements between the two countries, and it's made it clear that all Hong Kong residents are Chinese citizens, including those with British BNO passports.
What if we enter Uttarakhand? What if we enter India's many tri-junctions? Dialogue with India impossible. A day after China issued a vicious video warning to India over the Doklam military standoff. The government in Beijing has cut even more to the bone. As China's Doordarshan broadcast these fresh images of Chinese military drills aimed specifically at India. Its government has issued the most provocative threat so far. What if we enter Kalapani Tri-Junction? Pull back your troops or pay the price.
All right, the latest news break coming in right now after relentless warmongering responded by a dignified silence by India. China now seems to be pressurizing neighboring countries amidst a standoff in Doklam. A leading Chinese expert has now told the Global Times that India should not link everything to its border disputes with China. Lidia, professor at the China Institute of Contemporary International Relations, says India should not link everything to the dispute. Citing unnamed experts, the report adds the relations have become strained between India and Nepal over the last few years, and China is taking the opportunity to gain influence in the Himalayan nation.
And well, after the face-off with India, China is now locking horns with Japan over territory. China has opposed Japan's move on Diaoyu Islands and claimed that the island belongs to China. That is what is also being reported by the Chinese mouthpiece Global Times, as it goes on to say that Japan has moved into a serious provocation against China's territorial sovereignty. The bill is illegal, invalid, and can't change fact.
Let me assure you that President Trump's administration places a high priority on this region and specifically on long-term allies like Japan. As I told Minister Inada, the United States remains committed to the defense of Japan under the Treaty of Mutual Security, and we stand ready to enhance our alliance to the benefit of regional peace, prosperity, and freedom. Today, the Minister and I discussed the security situation, and I made clear that our long-standing policy on the Senkaku Islands stands. The United States will continue to recognize Japanese administration of the islands, and as such, Article 5 of the U.S.-Japan Security Treaty applies. As the Japanese people know so well, jointly we face many security challenges in this region, from the threat of nuclear and missile provocations by North Korea to increasingly confrontational behavior by China in the East and South China Seas, we recognize the changing security situation.
You can find more at aradio.wordpress.com, where you can find links to us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Gab, Spotify, and email. We're on Spotify under the podcast section. Type in Canadian Politics with a twist and you'll find us. We are continuing to reach out to you, so please pass these links on to your friends. Please click on the follow button on Spreaker.com. You can listen to all our morning moments at Spreaker.com/A-Radio, EHRADIO, A-Radio. And please click on the like button. Join us Monday, Wednesday and Friday at 11:45 Eastern, and tell your friends and pass the word. We only tell the truth, not what the mainstream media want you to know.